I think we made it. Okay, that looks a little orange, doesn't it? Let's try video capture device. Configure video. White balance. Boy, there's a real touchy point in there where it looks live. Okay, we'll do that. All right, so let's take a look at some of the comments we've gotten already. They started before we even started here. I took a suggestion from one of the Augies to go ahead and set this up a week in advance so that people get some advance notice of what's going on. And I appreciate all of you showing up for this. We'll have our sort of 15-minute pre-show here before we get into the questions, where we have a chance to talk about the comments here. The first comment is from Warren Parsons, KE0OG. Ishmael is here, J72IMS. And Randy is here. Hello, Randy. Tony Ryden. In Marion, Indiana, North Dakota. Let's see. I think they're up to KK now in California. I got my KE here in Colorado, but that was a long time ago. All right. Monk's Corner, South Carolina. All right. Let's see. Devil's Lake, North Dakota. Better propagation on here than on the radio lately, yeah. Shelby, North Carolina, Fontana, California. From Mississippi, KF5GOV. The UK, G7HFS. And various people saying hello to each other. Let's see. Yeah, so Randy has had his call sign about a month now. That's great. Congratulations, Randy, and welcome to Ham Radio. I hope you really enjoy it. It is close to time. It's getting there. Let's see. And Ishmael says hello again. And hello from southeastern Colorado. I'm in southwestern Colorado. 73's from Minneapolis. And CP Geek, thank you for your nice words. AB8AS in West Virginia. St. George, Utah. Groton, Connecticut. Albany, Georgia. Kalamazoo, Michigan. Western Pennsylvania. PDX, Oregon. And Tom Frericks is here from the other side of the mountain. He's over on the Front Range. And let's see, Edmonton, Alberta. Hello, Jason. Welcome. From Canada. Fowlerville, Michigan. Tim in Corpus Christi. Spotsylvania, Virginia. K0OG. Great. And welcome to everybody. Welcome to our weekly little get-together here. This is the live stream for my channel. I'm Dave Casler, amateur radio call sign KE0OG, and this is sort of the pre-show. I used to just have up this screen, but people got kind of tired of seeing that. The point of that screen was to let people collect and then start at the official time, but somebody suggested, why don't we just turn it into more of a chat and an information type of thing. Things are going along okay. I had showing my age here, I got a colonoscopy today. That was so much fun. Actually, I didn't remember a thing. I was laying in the operating room waiting for them to start, and they came over and said, we're finished. That was a whole stretch of time in there. I totally lost track of, totally dreamless sleep. Everything turned out just fine. I have to tell you, in order to do that exam on Saturday, I had to take a COVID-19 test. And they take that little thing they show on TV that's got the little fuzziness at the end of it. When they shove that up your nose, it feels like a quarter-inch drill going in up there. That was not a pleasant experience. But I am presuming it came back negative because they allowed me to go through the procedure. Nobody actually mentioned it. All a COVID test on Saturday proves is that I didn't have COVID on Saturday. I could have had it Sunday, but I didn't have it on Saturday. So, and then of course the accuracy rate on those things is not what I'd call truly spectacular. It's the best we have, so that's good. Okay, let's see. We've got Fowlerville, Michigan, Corpus Christi, Texas, Spotsylvania, Virginia, Southeast Iowa, Gray, Tennessee. Warren Alfred has jumped in. Jamal Nettles from Brooklyn, New York. And welcome. Boise, Idaho, West Tennessee. So how's the flying going? Well, today is October 1st, my annual on the thing. Rookie mistake. I bought an airplane that only had a few months left to go on its annual. Airplanes have to be inspected every year, or they can't fly. And the annual came due in September, so that meant that it was valid through the last day of September. And it's October 1st. It's officially not airworthy. The annual is scheduled for October 5th. Monday. So that gives me a couple days off. I still have not soloed. We're practicing landings now, which is, I guess, the final step before soloing. I've got an instructor number 4, Sue Mosher, who is a very nice gal who has been instructing and flying for many years. She just moved into the area from Steamboat Springs. And she's doing a very good job. She's very affirming, which is nice. She even makes nice comments in my logbook when I do something well. So I'm feeling a lot more confident in the left seat of the airplane, doing things, turning. I mean, I just say, well, let's just do this, and I look over there and we go over there, kind of thing. So that's getting better. The landings. Some of them are very good, let's put it that way. All of them have been such that I can fly the airplane again, so I guess that makes them good too. Atlanta from Gordon. Hello from Maryland. Spotsy, hi from KD4VMI. Magic for Ann. Good evening from British Columbia. Hi, Brian. Woohoo, thanks for all your help. He passed his extra last month. Well, Tim, congratulations and welcome to Amateur Extra. Go ahead and learn what it takes to do to get your VE certification so that you can become a VE and help other hams come up there. Greg Myron, thank you very much. Says, hey, Dave, money for channel funds. Keep up the great work, young man. Greg KJ6JIR in Silicon Valley. Well, thank you very much, and that does contribute to channel funds. I did just buy something with channel funds. It's this. This is a replacement microphone that goes with the little microphone system that I use here. This is from Rode. It looks like Rody to me, but it's the Rode Link, and this is the lav for it. The lav that was on it developed a partial open at the mic, so if you wiggled it, you get this horrible crackling noise. So, new mic, $100, comes right out of channel funds, and I say thank you to all of you for allowing me to have this semi-professional equipment. The professional is the Sennheiser. Okay, that's another half again as much. I have some Sennheiser wireless mics, but I have the same problem with that mic, that you wiggle it and it makes a lot of crackling. I have this Rode that I got before that, and it's a wireless mic. The lav goes down to a thing you put in your pocket, and then you can be, oh man, up to 50, 60 feet away, and it'll pick it up just fine. And it's got a little windscreen for it, so I can use it outdoors, which is very nice. And I have used it outdoors. The video I did on that J-pole antenna, which, by the way, has proven to be incredibly popular, over 10,000 views, I did with that, with the little, you know, every group of people has its own name for things. And the big, you see these on TV, the directional mics that have this fuzzy covering, they call that fuzzy covering a dead cat. And so the fuzzy covering from the little lavalier here is called a dead kitten. And it's horrible. I happen to like cats, but it's just the slang term for it. Okay, checking in Middleborough, Massachusetts. False negative. Yeah, the false negative varies by the test, which test they have. I think they're getting a bit better now at those things. But anyway, I'm feeling fine. Still a little tummy upset from the prep for this thing, but I'm doing fine here. I'm going to put a video together tomorrow, I think, on the new spectrum analyzer. I just bought a spectrum analyzer used from Brad Rich down in Alamogordo, New Mexico. He has been a major supporter of mine, his patron and an Augie, of course, and he came up here and helped me put the vertical together that came from a Step IR. It's the big IR vertical. Actually came up and helped me put it in. And I'm glad he did, because I never would have figured it out without him. Anyway, he had a spectrum analyzer he wasn't used, gave it to me for $500, which is less than a new spectrum analyzer costs, that's for sure. It's not the bottom of the line, it's up a little bit. Now the problem is it had end connectors on the front of it, which is fine, I guess. It's made in China. It's a Regal, and it. So I had to get some adapters for it. So I sent away to rfparts.com and got some adapters. They have an adapter for everything to everything. I think they've probably got one. I don't know. Think of the crate Jones plugs to BNC. I don't know. They've got a lot of adapters. Let's see. We have New England, and wow, the Faroe Islands. Reggie, hello and welcome. Oscar Yankee 1 Romeo, and Gary Wood just passed his technician in Atlanta at K0OG. Congratulations, Gary, and welcome to Ham Radio. Jamal Nettle said he bought some radios off eBay, and he needs a UHF radio, so you can get those fairly inexpensively. Most of the Chinese handhelds are dual band. Any landing you can walk away from. Yeah, I know. I've walked away from them all. I've taxied the aircraft back on all of them. We went to Montrose, which is actually a closer airport. Much, much, much busier. And it was amazing to see all the activity there, because Delta Lake Airport is pretty low-key. Montrose was crazy, and as I came off the runway, I came head-to-head with a jetliner that was flying commercial traffic. And we asked him his intentions, and he just says, "We want to know if you're going to turn there." I'm going, "Yeah, we're going to turn there. We're going to get off the runway so you can get on it." It was kind of funny, but we got there just fine. Let's see. John Wards welcomes Gary to the hobby. Rhode Island from Sean. Sean, how are you? Sean, I still haven't soloed. I'm trying to get there. Sean taught me ground school and got me through my written exam. Also a patron and a good friend. Benjamin Otto says good evening. Got his MD80 and a hotspot operating properly. DMR has a noteworthy degree of complexity. Oh, I like that phrase. Noteworthy degree of complexity. Yes, it is complex. Let's see. Ron says congrats to Tim. Spent the last 2 days moving my shack. Oh, gee, that's a lot of things to move. Logan Gloss is a private pilot himself. First solo is definitely a huge milestone. And I'm looking at them. When we flew from Delta down to Montrose, we had about 20 minutes there where, we just were flying. And I said, this is so cool, I can look around. Don't usually get to do that, I gotta work. Ishmael says his Cushcraft antenna broke in the heavy rain and wind. Yeah, there have been some, the tornadoes, not tornadoes, hurricanes are getting worse. It seems like, I guess they go through very, very, very long cycles, hundreds of years. Let's see, Benjamin Otto is also presenter at St. Paul Radio Club meeting tomorrow via Zoom. Very good. Okay, and it looks like Ishmael was working on his antenna. Hello, Davidson Newham. Your videos have really helped me. An advice word for Newham. Yeah, single word. Do not forget this word. Persevere. If I'm going to have that put on my gravestone. Persevere. Don't give up because you have 1, 2, 3, 5, 10 bad experiences. Just keep trying. And, do some club shopping. Find a club that you like. Start one of your own for other new techs. Whatever works for you, just persevere. Okay. Mount St. Helens Country, Humble, Texas. Sandy, Utah. My parents are buried in Sandy, Utah. Picked up a couple of BF 888s. Yeah, I'm working the world via YouTube. Infant half-wave antenna is strung and I'm on HF at last. Very good. Question someday if you haven't recovered this, fusing both positive and negative reasoning. Hello from San Antonio, just past General. Okay, and Daniel's with us, and Tim is also offering congratulations to Terry. Okay, let's play our music just so we can say we've done it. And very good. This is now the more formal part of the program. We'll try to go through questions and so on. Welcome, everybody. I'm, again, Dave Casler, amateur radio call sign KE0OG, amateur extra class. And I have a YouTube channel, and we've got, I don't have in the 73,000s anymore. I got 74,000 subscribers. I thought it was pretty cool. I had 73,000, 73, wow. It's 74,000. It's going up. I really appreciate that. The last video that I did was on the MFJ 915 Choke balen. And my goodness, that video took a lot of flack. I have now, again, I had like 97% thumbs up versus thumbs down, but there were a lot of people who really took issue with what I had to say. And, oh gosh, people will say anything on YouTube. They say I'm not an expert. I don't know how much of an expert I am. I have 45 years experience in ham radio. I have a bachelor's degree in mathematics, and I have a master's degree in electrical engineering. So I don't know what it takes to be an expert, but I make mistakes. I do. What people took me to task for was whether it was really a balen. It's a choke balen. It's made by MFJ, and I don't like where they suggest you put it because I think that defeats the purpose of it. But what people argued with, it's saying it's a choke and not a balen. A choke is generally considered to be a inductor that blocks AC and allows DC to pass through. If the proper term for something that removes unwanted energy in whatever form or another is a filter. And yes, this meets that definition of a filter. It is a choke, but the objection people had was to calling it a balen. You've got, because it's got coax connectors on each end. Well, the one coax connector it's supposed to go right to the antenna. And it doesn't matter really what the connector is, whether it's that or it's two pieces. They do make them with the two hooks. You can sew on same identical thing inside. I think what I'm going to do with that video is just say, okay, I made a lemon. What I did was I looked at the SWR changes with that, and they were very small, negligible. And I think what the best reasoning would be for that antenna is that my antenna system doesn't need a choke balen. It's set up in such a way that adding a choke balen just isn't going to help something that already works. I know people, Lou French is a friend of mine in Montrose, who builds choke balens for every one of his dipoles. He's got several dipoles. And he does it at the so-called, he has a white tube, plastic pipe, and winds coax around it, which is fine. Sometimes that's called a dirty balen. They do work. They work really well for him. My experience with balens in dipoles is not good, so I don't usually put a balen up there. Now, the reference station antenna, the MFJ 4, I'm forgetting. The reference station antenna is a dual band from MFJ, the 2010, and it is works on 40, 20, 10, and 6. It's an off-center fed dipole, and they not only have a transformer in there, which is not set up as a balen. It'd be bal. It's balanced in, balanced out. And then they have a little current balen, which has got two separate cores in there to make sure the currents are the same going in and out. And that is actually a balen. And it's all in a little box about that big, which is up at the antenna. And so I wouldn't want to put an additional balen on that. You wouldn't need it. It's already got one. And it's a transformer type balen as opposed to a choke type balen. So that's a balen too. A balen is a name of a function, not a particular configuration of things. It's the name of a function. It converts balanced to unbalanced. And in this case, it gets the common mode current, which comes down the outside of the coax. And some people pointed out I could have talked about skin effect. I could have talked about this. I could have talked about a lot of things. So I'm going to put that video down in the negative column. I'm not going to take it down. I think there's some good information in it, and most people liked it. But I don't know, people get really upset about terminology and stuff. Okay, I've talked about that for enough. We don't need to talk about that anymore. Okay. Let's see, some other questions. Questions someday if you haven't covered this. Fusing both positive and negative. Okay, in an automobile, that is considered best practice. The fuses are actually at the battery. Your wire should run to the battery itself. Now, the reason for the fuse in the negative lead is because your radio is attached to the chassis of the vehicle at the dash, usually. And if the lead that connects the battery to, let's do this with a picture. Let's go to the overhead. Okay, so you have a battery in your vehicle, and it's got a minus and a plus, and the minus comes over here and connects, well, let's see, the official chassis term looks like that, okay. And then this goes to the electrical system in there, and then all the devices, like say your tail lamp, are connected to the chassis. They only have one wire going to them, okay? And so if you connect your radio, you've got a radio here, and you connect the leads directly to the battery so you get the best voltage delivered. There's a fuse here and a fuse here. Now what the fuse here is for is if there's something wrong with the radio, it'll blow that fuse. Okay. Now, what would happen if this line breaks or comes loose? Then all of the car would find its ground through here and would try to pump 100 amps or so up through that lead, which is only designed for 20. And that's what that other fuse is for right there. It's a very rare fault, but it does happen enough that manufacturers put that extra lead in there. And it's designed just, you know, for the kind of fault that could result in a fire. So I think that's valid. I think it's valid for them to do that. In your shack, you're taking both the positive and negative leads from everything to your power system, and they're all grounded together. You don't have that same kind of fault capability. So you can just just fuse the positive lead. And Keith, let's see. Keith in San Antonio just passed his general. Congratulations, Keith. Let's get you on HF. And greetings from Camden, Michigan. Wondering what my opinion of the FT991 versus the IC7300 from Washington State. They're both fine radios. Now, I happen to pick the ICOM as the reference station radio. So when I make a video about HF, I'll use the ICOM. But they're both fine radios. I was like this myself because I've always been a Yaesu guy. The FT991A is a great radio. Make sure you get the A model because it's got the waterfall. Okay. Persevere. You need a callus on the forehead right across here. Persevere. That is what I am doing with flying. It's taking me a lot of hours to get where I am. I'm just going to persevere till I get it. Okay, yes, congratulations on the upgrade. Still saving pennies for the HF rig. The like button, thank you. Does the choke convert a balanced antenna to an unbalanced feed? It can, yes. What it does is it will stop the current coming back from the antenna, reflected from the antenna, back down the outside of the coax on your coax. And so in that sense, it's keeping the balanced and the unbalanced parts separate from each other. So, yeah, it's a balen. Yeah, a couple PhDs. I took 4 PhD classes when I was working for IBM. I took them at USC, which has become famous recently for other reasons. But they have a very strong electrical engineering department there. And I took some classes in information theory from them. It was absolutely fascinating, but then we moved. So, and I couldn't find anything equivalent in Colorado, so the journeyman degree for an engineer is the master's. And I have the master's, and so I could spend my career, with the level of education that an engineer should have. If you're an engineer and you just have your bachelor, you're going to find strong pressure from your peers and from your company to go start working at night to get that master's. Which is what I did. It took me 7 years. Talk about persevere. I had to basically switch majors at an undergraduate level and at the University of South Florida, so when we moved out to California, I could go to Cal State Northridge and spend a couple, 3 more years getting my master's in that. By the way, my master's thesis was on the machine interpretation of Morse code. So it's got to be about ham radio, right? Okay. Balen is intended to install at the feed point. Yeah, I know. Well, the outbound RF energy, Benjamin, is inside the coax. It's on the shield. The inside of the shield is supposed to be ground, but but all of the energy, that's the beauty of coax, all the energy stays in the coax. So you, if there's not supposed to be any energy in the outside of the coax, you can actually have energy going this way inside the coax with energy going this way on the outside of the coax back to your shack. And that is what the choke balen is designed to stop. Okay, in a video, yeah, I'm going to draw some diagrams. Dave Dalton is contributing $5 to channel funds. He says he has a choke that snaps around the coax. If I put more than one, it will give added advantage. Yes, the MFJ balen actually has 50 of those little things in there, so it's pretty good. Can I run coax through 40 feet of steel EMT conduit for VHF antenna? Yes. Will it change the impedance of the coax? No. Will it otherwise degrade the signal in and out? No. It will not increase or decrease the losses to VHF. If you're going to run 40 feet, run RG213 or LMR 400 or something like that, the bigger coax, so you'll have less line loss. There's some flat earthers lurking. I'll tell you what. Be careful of your sources on the internet. I am. I had somebody tell me that, I can find all these great websites that'll tell you things about wearing masks that'll curl your toes. And I'm going, yeah, right. I'm one of these people who is very careful with what is called in the scholarly community provenance. Where did the information come from? And the idea that the information's provenance is probably as important as, sometimes maybe even more important than, the information itself. If it's something from the Centers for Disease Control, that's a good provenance. If it's from the Mayo Clinic, that's good provenance. If it's from Joe Blow's left-wing nut ear shop in Minden, Nebraska, that's not good provenance, and I'm not going to believe it. Wikipedia has gotten much, much, much better in recent years as being a reliable source of information. However, do take everything there with a slight grain of salt, because it's all subject to change. There are, everybody has their favorite news channel. I would recommend shopping around a little bit for news channels, trying different news channels, because you'll hear very different things. So anyway, provenance is a word for, like, on the balen issue, I took the ARRL antenna book and the German Deutsche Amateur Radio Club antenna handbook, and I looked up what I had said about antennas, and it was in there. And I consider those books good provenance. I consider the ARRL to be a valued and accurate source of electrical information for amateur radio operators. Also, one other thing we consider is that an amateur, in the sense used 100 years ago, 120 years ago, comes to us from the English. When they were resurrecting the Olympics, what they wanted to do was limit it to amateur athletes. They didn't want any professional paid athletes, just amateurs. Well, amateurs meant people who could fund themselves. And that meant the rich. An amateur in English thinking is somebody who's absolutely expert at something, but is not paid, does not earn his or her living from the subject at hand. In the United States, it's had a somewhat different connotation, but back in the time of the dawn of radio, the term amateur just meant something who wasn't trying to make money out of it. Marconi, for example, was definitely not an amateur, he was a pro. But there were many others who contributed to it. For example, the inventor of the regen receiver, Major Armstrong at the time, was in the Army. He was an amateur, okay? He tried to make money out of it. He never did. He never did make any money out of it. He was a terrible businessman. But he was in the Army, and he worked as an amateur. He wasn't paid to be a radio pro. He was paid to be an Army officer. So there's an example of an amateur making just fabulous contributions to radio science. The Wright brothers, when they first started out, owned a bicycle shop. The flying stuff, now they had the funding because their father was a clergyman, the bishop in, where was it, Akron? That's not the right city, I don't think. They were amateurs. They were not being paid by the government. They were not being paid by some venture capitalists or anything like that. They were amateurs, and they flew. Now, as soon as they did that, they became professionals in the area, and they were selling Wright engines long after they were selling Wright airplanes. They got too hung up on their original design, and other people, notably Curtiss, jumped in ahead of them. I am digressing, am I not? Okay, Chad just passed his technician exam. You didn't fail your general because you didn't study for your general. You passed your technician exam. Wow, good. Welcome to ham radio. Now start studying for your general and get yourself on the air and so on. That's great. Flat earthers, yes. That got me going. I shouldn't do that. I should talk about ham radio. Okay, and Daniel, I agree with you. Everything says put the choke at the feed point of the antenna. Okay. Murat Sen says 73s from Tango Alpha 2 Alpha Whiskey Romeo. Wow. Welcome. USF Go Bulls. That's some football team, I guess. But BS Math as well, and work in electronics as a test engineer. Good for you. And so you know how careful you have to be about units and everything. Let's see, Anthony Vitale, David, if you had to pick one radio for CW use, what would you pick and why? Well, my FTDX 3000, which is sitting right there, an outstanding CW radio. But then again, so is the ICOM 7300. Kevin Hennon said that he is using my licensing courses. Micro BITX radio kits. They've got version 6 out, I think. You go to hfsigs.com, hfsigs.com. And I've got my version 6 right up here. I did a video on it. Works fine. Doesn't put out as much power as they say it does. but they work. It's a very interesting radio, and it's either voice or CW. If you want to be on voice, you press down the push to talk button. If you want to be on CW, you press down the key. That's that easy, really. And the kits don't require any soldering. You just put everything together and it goes together in an evening, and it's very inexpensive. I would not recommend it as a first radio. I think you should get a 100-watt radio as your first radio. Fiberglass poles for a mast. Should you ground the antenna? Only if it is a vertical or something like that. AA7GWQRP Labs clock version 103C seems to have a bug. Have you heard about it? Mine seems to be okay. I don't know what version mine is. I'd have to dig into the paperwork. I know I upgraded mine because it wasn't working right. Do you consider yourselves a full-time YouTuber, or do you work a normal job? I am officially retired from IBM. I tell people I am ostensibly retired because I have a YouTube channel. I'm not really full-time. I mean, I'm spending a lot of time learning to fly. But I do want to get 2 or 3 videos out every week. I do have an assistant. And by the way, he's back. Julian's back. He's off in Salt Lake right now getting his physical for going in the Air Force. He wants to become an airplane mechanic. And he's been pretty good. I've also kept Lauren Cook as an assistant from afar. She's in Boulder, but she does online stuff for me. So that really helps. David Dalton says he got his private at 50 and just did his BFR. Working on instrument now. Very good. Wikipedia, if you follow up on the cited sources, is useful. Yeah. You mean there is no black hole in the middle of the Earth? Oh, yeah. Somebody threw that out there, and it's enough to attract attention. Until fairly recently, the Earth's core was considered to be liquid. Then people have come out saying that there is a solid core with liquid around it, and the solid core is made about half iron and half nickel. The answer is they don't know. I doubt very much there's a black hole in the middle of the Earth. That'd be just too freaky. Wikipedia is a good starting point, but drill down from there. Yes, I agree. Where did the term ham radio come from? Well, it's amateur radio. It's radio, and you'll note, remember what I said earlier about amateur radio, about amateurs, is that they don't do it for the money because they're separately funded. We don't do anything for money. In fact, we are forbidden to take money for what we do. And that goes way back to those days to separate us from the professional radio types. We don't take money for what we do. So that's the amateur part. Now, the ham part is because of the contempt of the commercial boys for the amateurs. Remember, it was Spark era, and Spark signals all interfere with each other. And the term ham had come to mean somebody who overdid it, like a ham actor, or being ham-fisted, something like that. And the term stuck, and hams picked it up and used it. And so it's like the term Yankee. The British called the Americans Yankees, and the Yankees said, okay, fine. A lot of amateur inventors are terrible businessmen. Oh, that is true. Dayton? Yeah, you're right, it was Dayton. I like the theory that professional telegrators. Yes, Orville and Wilbur Wright. Somehow all the trained pros at US AMRID. Okay, our most recent ARRL exam session netted 18 techs and 2 generals. Great. CDC and who finds that masks are the lightest lev. Something got misspelled there. I'd really like to take a flight in as a SOP with Camel. I wouldn't mind doing it with a very expert pilot. I'd be scared to death to fly the thing. Ever heard of the DX Commander all-band antenna? Got one! It's being put together. My assistant, who keeps disappearing, getting ready to go in the Air Force, is the one putting it together. He was working on it just day before yesterday. and we're going to put that thing up and put it through the test. I was told that the instructions are hard to follow, so I gave them to Julian and said, follow these. And they're right. Those instructions are hard to follow. We'll get there. We'll get there. Urban, yeah, the urbanites look down on the ham-handed farm boys. Why do so many radio hams get stuck on HF and phone and never progress any further? Well, I'm going to tell you, Stephen, I like HF. It's fun. It's the part of amateur radio where you never know who you're going to talk to, you can make new friends, all of this kind of thing like that. There are other things that can be done, and the true experimenters, I mean, just look at what's been done with WSJTX, Joe Taylor and his group, who are really bright scientists. I mean, Joe Taylor is a Nobel laureate for work he did on quasars. He's a radio astronomer, and to find the weak, faint little signals from stars, they have to do incredible amounts of noise processing. And he has applied that noise processing to WSJTX. And so we can all benefit from that. COVID. Oh, good old COVID. Good stuff. Snoopy's the pilot? Yeah, now that one I would do, yeah. If you can find Snoopy. Thank you, Julian. Yes. I have Anytone D878 and am about 10. I would like to try handheld beam to get just a little more. Arrow and Diamond, I think, sell handheld beams on 2 meters. They're mainly used for satellite work, but they're also used for fox hunting. And so you can get them from, I think, either Arrow or Diamond Arrow antenna. Didn't he have a Fokker triplane? Snoopy? I don't remember. Amateur from the Latin Amauter to love. Yeah. Okay. Still offer flights in Winter Reinhardt, New York. Okay. Or was, we haven't talked about any of these at all. These questions. Let's do that. I'm wrapped around the axle on impedance, capacitance, and inductance. Have any tips or reference? Well, if you really want to get into it, go into the amateur extra videos. And there's one on radio mathematics. And there is also the following one, which will talk to you about inductance and capacitive reactance. Also, big news that I've just received. I have an article coming out in the October QST on radio mathematics. And I hope they found the error in my manuscript, because they never sent me a proof for review. There is an error in there. I don't know how to give a banana to the first person who finds it. Anyway, let's take a look at this first picture. This is from Jeff Wittern, and he sends this picture, let's see, screen, right here, of his, this is his AV640 antenna, and he has a little problem with the counterpoise here touching the roof. It's a great way to pick up static and stuff from doing that. And so he has basically put a little rubber around the ends of those things, so when they touch the roof, they won't be so bad. You can see how complex that antenna is, putting that thing together. Let's look and see what else we can find in here. Here is a fan dipole. This looks very much like the fan dipole from Alpha Delta. Right here, the other half be going in. This right here looks sort of like a CB antenna. The old CB antennas, but he's got quite a few antennas there that are working really nice, and the counterpoises touch the rubber membranes on his garage roof. So I think he said something about tying them up a little bit with some rope so that they don't scrape along the roof, because if that's a rubber membrane, you don't want anything puncturing that. Oh, when I worked for IBM, we had a rubber membrane roof, and a bad hailstorm just tore the living daylights out of that roof and flooded the mainframe room and made a mess. Woo! Okay, so there is his antenna. He's very proud of that. This next question comes from Nick Brown, Golf6JIR in the UK. A question which appears not to be generally covered in a simple manner. On researching and observing an installation, the permissible safe level of RF in a shack accommodation at HF frequencies 400 watts in the UK, 1K elsewhere, in regards to beams in close proximity. If you go to the technician general or extra video in my training videos, in the last little section there's always a video on RF safety. That RF safety video gives a little calculator, and there's also a link to this on the ARRL website if you look up RF safety, to a little calculator that you can go to, punch in the numbers, and see what the exposure is. For the lower HF frequencies, you're fine. It's going to be really hard to get themselves too much. By the time you get up to 12 or 10 meters, it's not necessarily fine. But take a look at that, Nick, and see if that answers your question. This is from Ed K6SDW. Would you use the MFG 915 choke with an end-fed antenna and still located at the antenna end? No, I would not. The end-fed antennas have some pretty serious transformers at the end. It's an impedance device. It's a 7-to-1 transformer, but 7-to-1, remember, you square the turns ratio, so it's a 49-to-1 impedance transformer. So you go from 50 to like 2,500, did I get that right? 2,500 ohms, and then feed it at the end. There's usually a counterpoise wire, or it will use the outside of the shield. Now, when I tested the end-fed half wave here, I just used my 50-foot coax that I use there outside to connect to various antennas, and it's grounded at where the lightning arrestor is, and it worked fine for me. But yeah, what's in there, that transformer, acts as a balen, and you don't need to add anything extra. You may want to experiment adding a counterpoise of maybe 10 feet, maybe 20, but 10, probably 10, 15. And you can do very well with that. Let's see what we have here. DX Commander review. Yeah, I know I'm not going to review the instruction manual very well, but the antenna itself looks very well thought out. Hello from somebody using an Asian character set. Question, I've heard it was bad to turn off the radio at the power supply. Yes, that's true. The problem is that when you turn off a power supply, there's energy in the coil. If you've got a switching power supply, there's energy left in the coil, and it wants to go somewhere, and it can put a voltage spike on the output, and you don't want that in your radio. So turn the radio off first, and then turn the power supply off. Okay, what do you recommend for a RIDI program for Win 10? FLDigi works fine. Has anyone been able to work the ISS repeater? See, Snoopy's airplane is a sup with Camel, yeah. And his favorite drink at the bar was root beer. I love those long excursions he'd go on. Those were something. Taylor's immense noise processing capability can be handled by any modern computer sound card. His contribution to the hobby is extraordinary. Yes, it is. Some guys at the local club got some Russian images from the ISS yesterday and today. Good. nemesis was Baron Manfred von Richthofen, who flew the Fokker. Yeah, quite an interesting story about Richthofen. He was killed by a Canadian, apparently. There's a number of stories about it, but when his plane crashed and people knew it was the Red Baron's airplane, everybody went to grab a souvenir off of it, so they didn't. The intelligence people weren't able to learn anything from the airplane. They gave him a full military honors funeral on the western side for that. He was respected as a warrior. Let's see, the WRC TIA 1000 is my first antenna. Good. Very good. If it works well for you, just keep going. 40, 20, 15, and 0.64 on my DX Commander. Very good. And I hope it works very well for you. In Lima, Peru, and the ISS been flying Lima. Know that they proactively see when the passes will come up and set up ahead of time. You know, so everybody's selling NFED antennas. It's not really an improved ZEP per se. The ZEP is a J-pole. The ZEP and the J-pole are electrically identical. What has improved in the antenna design recently are the Aggies. It used to be that the elements were always spaced the same length apart. And then finally somebody said, well, what if they aren't? And started doing some analysis and determined that you could actually get better performance if they weren't spaced evenly. And so there have been some new designs on those. The NFED ZEP is a J-pole, and MFJ sells an NFED ZEP for 40 and an NFED ZEP for 20. And the one that I got from them had been terribly miscut. The lengths were all wrong. I got the manufacturing instructions from them and put the thing together properly, and it worked like a charm. Whole band coverage, very nice. You only need two places to mount it. There's nothing hanging down in the middle. The drawback, of course, is it is a single band antenna. It won't work on other frequencies because the feed is all wrong on other frequencies. But the analysis of the NFED ZEP and the ZEP in the ARRL antenna handbook neglects to point out that you have to have a quarter wavelength matching stub, and then you feed it part way up, foot or two up is where you feed it, and it's shorted at the bottom just like a J-pole. And if you do that, it works extremely well. Yeah, antennas go through popularity fads. The 43-foot vertical was a fad about 15 years ago until people finally figured out it really didn't work well on the higher bands. Okay. Yeah. Let's see. SC Flowers, which antenna are you talking about? He says it's worked very well for him. One topic in RF radiation safety that could be interesting is differentiating RF burns and microwave cooking. One is direct contact with the thing, and it's just an electric current that causes the burn. Microwave cooking heats the whole thing from the inside out. Neither are ionizing radiation. Do you know of any SDR kits? Would like to get a simple kit to play around with SDR. There was an article a while back in QST that talked a little bit about using a dongle, and then they put some stuff around it to get a little SDR. I have an SDR that I don't think is in here anymore. It's the Fifi SDR. It was put out by the German Amateur Radio Club. I used that for quite a while for my videos, but now I've got this, let's see, this is the RSP-1A from SDR Play, and It's literally a black box. It's powered off the USB cable, and it's a very nice little receiver. I've got all three of their receivers, the Duo and the new one. And I use this one here. If I want to look at something on an SDR, just click, and I've got it. It's also connected to the 7300, so I can look at the waterfall from the 7300 in a great deal more detail from that. And it's $100. It's not that expensive, and it's easy to play with, and the software is free for that. I prefer using the house brand software for that because that way, it uses every feature of it. Okay, and let's see. Keith has been using the extra videos. The Red Baron triplane. Is that the one that was the triplane? Yeah. There were better airplanes that he could fly, but he stuck with the one he knew and was very good at it. Infed halfway running over the house. I don't have a choice. About 10 to 15 feet. Some say don't do that, but you have no choice. Do it. Make it work. SWR is great on my antennas, 80-10 infed halfway. I'm going to say this about that. Quote President Nixon. It's less than 3 to 1 on the bands that it covers. And on 80, it only covers the very bottom of the band. It's less than 3 to 1, but the ICOM 7300, as do most modern radios, has a built-in antenna tuner that will handle up to 3 to 1. So you can use it. Let's see. Don has all the bands plus 60. Oh, that's interesting. Don, I'd like to learn more about your DXC antenna. Sorry, I'm off now. It's 02:45 in the UK. Yeah, it's 01:46 UTC, which you're an hour ahead of that on British summertime. Thank you for joining us. It's got a new blurb about the launch of the Antares rocket. Oh, finally they got their act together, got that thing in the air. Elon Musk was running circles around those people. Okay, if you were to experiment a new territory in amateur radio, where would you experiment? It can't be true that everything in amateur radio has been done already. The two areas of exploration right now are the very, very low bands. The two new low bands, where all we're allowed is 1 watt EIRP, and they're doing fabulous things with it. And then microwave areas, to where it's being done. Single sideband seems stuck in a rut. There have been various voice protocols put out for HF, but I have never seen any used. What a lot of these protocol designers do is they want to build a box and charge you money for it. They need something you can use through your regular little sound card that's cheap. Okay. The SDR is also a lot of place where there's a lot being done. Braden, thank you for your good wishes. Bunch of telecom wire, drop wire, 2 pair, pole to the house. Like to use it to make a dipole. Would I gain anything by twisting each pair at the ends? Yeah, you could do that. Yes, and that would work. That would work for you. Boy, that telecom wire, that is, I haven't seen that stuff in years. Let's see. Joined a slower speed CW net on 2 meters using a chameleon 2 meter horizontal vertical antenna. Not as good in vertical polarization as my Diamond X30. Think about building a quarter wave vertical. How do radios affect SWR? What they affect on a vertical is the efficiency of the antenna. You lose a lot of power in the ground. It heats the ground. And if you put radials out, it allows that power to be reflected back up. The performance of an antenna improves as the number of radials. If you have a choice between fewer and longer radials versus shorter and more, do the shorter and more. Make them about 25 feet long. And that's what we're going to do on the DX Commander when we put that thing up. Okay, I have channel on a video with Rolla coil. Don, send me an email to hamradioanswers.com with details. hamradioanswers@gmail.com. It seems to be working better recently. Have you tried a double bazooka antenna? No, I haven't. Like the doublet and the Moxon. Fortunately, no space for the doublet, yes. Have a look at the 3D view. What's the difference between a doublet antenna and a speaker wire antenna? Wire's wire. I mean, as long as it's copper. You can get away with aluminum, but finding aluminum wire these days is hard. On radials, read the paper. Well, there's lots of papers on stuff there. Okay, we haven't gotten very many questions, have we? Let's get to some questions. This is from Ernie, who has been W0AUU for 65 years. He's trying to learn how to build a balen coil for my off-center fed window. I watched a video where the ham used number 14 wire wound on a 1-inch PVC pipe. That seems kind of odd because that would just be an inductor. It would not act as a balen in any way unless it were arranged as a balen. Can you use number 14 house wire in a twisted pair? We can try it. But I don't know what good. See, the problem is now you've gone to what is in essence open wire transmission line with a twisted pair of number 14, which is going to have a really weird impedance. The idea of coiling the coax is that thing that I spoke about earlier, where the RF goes through the coax and has no interference from outside. And the point of the choke, the wire wound around makes an inductor, which is a choke, is to stop the current on the outside of the wire. This gets into skin effect, which I should have talked about in the video. On the inside of the wire, the energy, if you want to be an engineer about it, the energy actually travels through the dielectric inside, but you've got current in the wire, electrons moving, and you've got current on the skin of the inside of the shield, okay? And that's what you want, and if you wrap that in a coil, it doesn't even know it's wrapped in a coil, because the only thing that affects it is what's inside. However, when you get a reflection coming back down, it comes down the outside of the wire, and that's where that coil, it sees that as an inductance and a choke. So that's why that's working there. So what I would recommend to you, Ernie, is a little bit of, I mean, you could try what you're looking at, but I would just wrap some coax around the line. I realize that coax is over $1 a foot these days, but if you got some old, you want thinner coax, you want like RG8X or RG58. RG58, the shielding isn't all that good. It's only like 95% shielded. I would go with RG8X or something like that, or LMR 240. Okay. Let's see, this is from KC2LSD. His name is Rodney. He has an MFJ 1788X mag loop. The X is 220 volts. And notice when I get the SWRs down to about 1.2, it'll say this way along as I keep the rig on. Well, actually, if you tune the radio more than about 20 kilohertz in either direction, it should start to change. But when I turn the radio off and turn it on later without changing the frequency, the SWR shows about 3 on the meter until you slightly taps the slow tube button to get it back down to 1.2. What do you think is causing this behavior? I'm wondering why it doesn't show a change in SWR when you tune the radio. Now, I will mention that I have noticed with that antenna, because I've got the 17, I think it's the 86. In fact, it's up on the roof, and it made an appearance in the video about the J-pole that was fed with the gamma match. That it's very, very sensitive to temperature. And you can tune it up and come back a couple hours later, and it is not in tune. Because the capacitor has to be so precisely aligned for it to happen. And I think that it may be as simple as that, what's going on here. You come back a while later, it's gotten hotter outside, or it's gotten cooler outside, or the wind is blowing, or something like that, or a bird landed on it, I don't know. But you have to retune it each time. And it does change tune with temperature very strongly. I think that may be causing the behavior. This next one's from Steeve K5KEG. I need Ouray County on 40 meters to finish work. All Colorado counties on CW. Do you operate CW in 40 meters? Yes, I can. I'll save that for later. Okay. My CW is horrible. It's really gone down. Steve, you've got to be nice to me on the CW. I mean, like 10 words a minute max. Okay, Mike Carington KG0P says, I also neglected using code for a number of decades. How or what program are you using to get back on that horse? If you already know the code, the best way, bar none, to get back in the saddle is to get on the air. There's an organization called the Straight Key Century Club, and look that up on the internet, SKCC. It's got a little bit longer URL, and we talked about it a week ago, I think. They sponsor slow speed CW. Your best bet for slow speed CW is around 7050, 7050, or 7110, about, are the two frequencies where you'll find slow code. And you can go as slow as you want until you get your speed up. Okay, that's the best way to do it. The problem with the programs on the air, it's like flying a flight simulator, like a homemade flight simulator, not the real big professional ones, but a homemade flight simulator versus getting in a real airplane. I mean, one teaches you, the other's the actual real thing. So I would suggest that. The feed line for the doublet is usually open wire line or window line. Yeah, there's, by the way, on radials, there's an awful lot written that is fairly content-free about radials. And I've read stuff about radials by manufacturers that has just been bonkers. I would just say this about radials. Usually more is better. I've got about 30 on my antenna of various lengths. Doesn't matter what the lengths are. I would insulate them, and I would put them on top of the ground, if you can. And not more than just a little bit under the ground if you have to mow over it or something like that. Don't make them buried. Get them out there where the radio wave from the antenna can hit it and reflect without the ground interfering a bunch with it. So, the speaker wire, let's see, I've been on the analog FM with my HT. If a repeater is DMR fusion, etc., must I use an HT that is the same? Yes, you do. But all of the DMR fusion and D-Star repeaters also work on FM. Pair of wires running in parallel. Yeah, you can figure out the impedance by getting the dimensions. The distance apart of the center and the thickness of the wire, and go into a formula in the handbook or on the internet and actually calculate the impedance for that. You'll find it's really weird. Let's see, later check out Miss. Okay, sounds like the doublet. Yes, there is a similarity. The thing about the G5RV is that a length of a ladder line is used as a transformer on that. I had one once, didn't work for me. Actually, I took it back. Ladder line comes. Have you tried Sigma Eurocom Limited SEHF X80 vertical? No, I haven't. Send me an email to hamradioanswers.com with the details. My backyard is so full of antennas, it's ridiculous. I'm hoping I have enough coax left to get to the one spot where I can put the DX Commander. Still call CQ, but after that the lookup table for CW is not there. Huh. Yeah. Okay. Yes, SKCC members. Oh my. CW Ops, fast guys, really fast guys. Yeah. Optical Man Jeff, thank you very much. He says I am his Elmer. And thank you for the addition to the channel funds. Rudy Severance has a scientific paper written on radials. He's a ham, but he did a full set of tests and calculations. Yeah, there are other great papers on radials too. Yeah, more radials the better, and length is not that critical a parameter. It's just to provide an artificial ground for a little ways, because the amount of RF that's reflected by the ground for a vertical goes down as you get further away from it. So it's that first 20 or 30 feet that's critical, that you have a nice ground plane. And if you have a tree in the way, if you have a house in the way, just put them where you can. Okay. Ishmael Samuel writes that he is hoping to be on HF soon, on 40 and 80. And we've got questions left over for next time. Sorry I went on that diatribe about that video. That was I'm sorry, that was not up to my usual quality. Okay, so this ends our live stream for today because we're out of time. I super enjoy this time with you every week. It's just one of the highlights of my week. And I'll be putting a video together very shortly on the spectrum analyzer. I've got to do one on the G90. Here, I owe this. This is actually on loan from MFJ, so I can't keep it forever. I've got a query from Radioddity. Apparently, they publish a external spectrum scope for this radio, and they're going to send me one to take a look at. So I may hang on to this for a while. Let's see. No room for a no room for a Wallenweber. Wallenwebers take up many, many acres. What about radials when using a rig mobile? The car roof acts as the radials. Stationary does too. Stick it on the top of your filing cabinet or something if you're going to do that. So I'm going to say 73 to everybody. Thank you very much for another wonderful live stream. We have 205 concurrent viewers. $25 has been put into the pot for channel revenue. And that really helps with things like the replacement microphone for the one that went bad. This was a $100 microphone. It's a professional wearable microphone. I'm going to put semi-professional because the real professional is Sennheiser. But this works very well. I like the tone of it. I like the tone of the Sennheiser a little better, but it's $200 more. So that's what you get. You know, you get when you pay. You can pay anything. You pay thousands of dollars for microphones, and what you get is something like incrementally better, but it makes enough of a difference. Professionals will pay for that. Okay, all right. Okay, thank you very much. HF cables exit the house at ground level and run up the chimney. No, that's fine. I would put a ground rod out there where they exit the house and put lightning arresters there. Run all your cables through lightning arresters. That will really help with noise and so on. So, until we next meet, now I have to wag a finger like this to say 73 because the YouTube is so far behind real life. I've got to make sure I don't end the stream too soon. So, 73. We'll see you all next week. Let's see. End stream.